Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think, inflate, dropping unrealistic magic. 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach, slip on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that fill the day. Good afternoon, folks. It is Tuesday. It's around noon Eastern Standard Time. You know what time it is. It's time for the 3-point Blitz. And we got this new hat debuting today, folks. That's right. It's a custom-made hat with the 3-point Blitz logo on it. So that's the good news. The bad news is we're one day removed from the Philadelphia Eagles' third straight loss, this time be it to the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday Night Football. And that's why I got this ugly Christmas sweater on. You see that? Because that's what I'm in. I'm in a grouchy mood today. That's right, folks. The Philadelphia Eagles got me in a grouchy mood after that abysmal 5-turnover performance on offense. That's right. So that's right. That represents this right here. Because that's my mood today after the Eagles' performance yesterday on offense specifically. We'll get to more on that. But then when I get up this morning, I already see it. Based on one game, mind you. One game, I see the stupidity starting already. From some people, some accounts, some of these so-called Philly fans who are starting pointless discussions just to get people talking. And that's going to tie into my rant of the week in just 1 second. Hey, folks. I mean, it's bad enough I had to sit through this game last night with so many chances where the offense did great. The defense did great. The offense, running-wise, Saquon Barkley actually had a good game, but they couldn't close out the deal. They got scoring territory numerous times, and they couldn't close the deal. So, I get it. I hold Jalen Hurts accountable for that performance. But then there were some fans out there who, just based off one game, all of a sudden they want to make a switch at quarterback based on one game. Some Eagles fans, not all of them, now some people are suggesting that the Eagles start Tanner McKee. Oh, boy. Look, I get it. I was disappointed with Jalen Hurts' performance yesterday. I was personally disappointed with that performance. So I get it. I was disappointed in that performance. But then all of a sudden you get these fans all of a sudden that want Tanner McKee to start, all because Jalen Hurts had one bad game. Guys, Tanner McKee is a guy who's been a backup on this roster, who has one career start, mind you. Less. And some fans' argument are going to be, well, have you seen the preseason games? Look how good he looked. He looks real poised. He went against the Bengals starting defense. Have you seen the Cincinnati Bengals starting defense this season, folks? Have you? Have you seen the Cincinnati? They're a historically worse defense. So because Tanner McKee started a preseason game against this god-awful Cincinnati Bengals defense, some people think he should be the starter. And his only NFL start was last year against, let's be real, a collapsing Dallas Cowboys team. Or not a collapsing, but a damn near surrendered Dallas Cowboys team in Week 17 last season at home on a team that pretty much gave up hope for the season. That's his one start. And even then, guess what happened? No, wait, actually, I stand corrected. He was a third stringer. He filled in when Kenny Pickett got hurt. He continued momentum against the Dallas Cowboys team in the second half. We're already given up at that point in the game. Kenny Pickett picked them apart. The Cowboys had pretty much given up. And that's the guy. You think all of a sudden Tanner McKee is going to come in and magically get this ship going with basically no experience with this dreadful play calling that's been going on throughout this season. Magically, Tanner McKee is going to be the answer that gets it going. Get out of here. Come on. You can't be for real now, can you? You've got to be kidding me. Look, I understand Jalen Hurts had a dreadful game, but the man is a former Super Bowl MVP. Do we not forget? We sat down back in February and watched the Super Bowl where Jalen Hurts was the MVP of that game. Remember? Remember that, folks? Remember he had an awesome conference championship game against the Commanders? Remember? Do you guys remember this? Now all of a sudden you think Tanner McKee should start because Hurts had one dreadful game? Look, I hold Jalen Hurts accountable for sure for what happened, but what makes you think all of a sudden that Tanner McKee, with no experience, is going to come in with this horrific play calling and all of a sudden make things better with no starting experience? What makes you think realistically that's going to happen? Look, just because the guy plays decent in preseason does not make him a starter. Does not mean they're going to be a good starter. A lot of times, usually when players get playing time during preseason games, they're usually going against lesser competition, which usually means players shine during preseason. So let's not forget that, folks. So please don't even get me started on this idea that Tanner McKee's all of a sudden going to come in and ride the ship around just based off what? One dreadful game. And newsflash, quarterbacks have dreadful games, folks. All right, have you ever seen Josh Allen have a multi-turnover game? Have you ever seen Patrick Mahomes have a multi-turnover game? Matter of fact, he just had one. Have you ever seen, during Tom Brady's playing career, him have a dreadful game? Did you ever see Peyton Manning have a dreadful game? And I think you get the point. So every quarterback, even the best quarterbacks, have dreadful games. Now, I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts is on the same level of prime Tom Brady, prime Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes. What I'm saying is that any quarterback can have an awful game. It happens, even to the best of quarterbacks. So if it can happen to some of the all-time greats, it can happen to Jalen Hurts too. So please, but did anyone ever call for those guys, like I just said, to get benched off one dreadful game? No. See, come on, you gotta think, folks. You can't just automatically want someone benched. And let's be real. Some people are just desperate for clicks. They're desperate for discussion. Look, if you want to have discussion, by all means have discussion, but why not, instead of talking about whether or not Tanner McKee should be the starter just to get people going, why not talk about if Jalen Hurts is having a fall off or if he just had one dreadful game to get people discussing, to get a discussion going? The point is, there's always better ways to do it. And newsflash, to some of these fans, to some of these accounts on social media that are trying to run with the talking point, the question of whether or not Tanner McKee should start, you're going to lose some credibility. You're going to lose potential followers as a result. So before you start posing stupid questions just to get a reaction, realize it can hurt your presence, especially for those that are getting paid to do this, that have partnerships with social media platforms to put out content, whether that be YouTube or X or Facebook or whatever you got a partnership with. If you're putting out dumb takes or dumb questions just to get people talking, you could potentially lose some followers, and that could come back to hurt your pocketbook later on down the line. So, because take it from me, a guy who immediately tunes out when they see stupid questions proposed, you're potentially losing some followers. So enough with the stupid questions, all right? You want to have a discussion. Talk about Jalen Hurts. Talk about whether or not this is just a bad game or not. That's a perfectly reasonable discussion to have. And being that the game's fresh on people's mind that it happened, that ended about 12 hours ago, it's going to generate discussion. So it's a better way to generate discussion while maintaining your credibility. So please be wiser. Stop coming up with these brain dead takes or these stupid questions, because you're going to lose credibility. And that's all I'm going to say. And all I'm going to say about Tanner McKee is all you're seeing is a sample size of him in preseason and one half in garbage time against the dead Cowboys team last season. That's not going to give you, and that's not enough of a sample size to just insert a guy in as the starter, okay? All right, folks? How many times have we seen someone come in as a backup, have a nice run, then a team foolishly thinks they're the starter, and they end up not panning out? We've seen this throughout NFL history. Jeff Hostetler, who filled in for Phil Simms with the Giants, the Raiders thought, hey, Jeff Hostetler could be the guy. That didn't work out so great, now did it? Remember A.J. Philly filled in for McNabb, and the Dolphins thought he could be their guy? That didn't work out so great. He returned as a backup. So even if, the only way Tanner McKee's getting playing time is if Hurts gets injured. And even if McKee comes in, say, against the Raiders or against the Commanders and plays good against garbage teams, mind you, that doesn't mean he's the long-term answer as a starter. So I'm not even going to entertain this discussion. I just wanted to get that off my chest. And I'll have more to get off my chest when we get to the Eagles game later. So don't worry, Eagles fans. I got more coming. Got straight to the point. Sports ENT stopping by. Been one of my main supporters. Hope you're having a great start to your Tuesday. I'm here kicking it as always on the 3-point blitz. Now we got the rant of the week out the way about the stupid idea of Tanner McKee possibly being the starter just on one game alone. Now let's move on. So first off, Cowboys fans, you probably thought, I really don't see why you would find that to be funny because your team lost and you're still 2 games back because the Detroit Lions defeated the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football in a game that there was some chance that the Dallas Cowboys could potentially win that game going into it. I even thought going into it Thursday last week around this time, I thought the Cowboys had a chance at beating the Lions. But obviously that was not the case, and we have a hot take here. A.J. Brown is a cancer. That's a hot take right there, folks. That's something that we could definitely discuss later on down the line. That's interesting. Very bold take, but I give you credit for having the courage to put it out there. So that's something I can always respect, though. Anyone who's willing to put out their take, whether it's popular or unpopular, well, that's a good discussion we got to get going as Eagles fans. I might even put that as a poll question. And then you also put Jalen Hurts inexcusable turnovers. Oh, absolutely. And I said that last night. I did a YouTube short kind of mini crash out. And I said that what Hurts did was inexcusable. Now, do I think that am I giving up on him as the starter? No. But he does deserve blame for that terrible performance last night. He does deserve blame. And granted, I know you're going against the third best pass defense, but you can't be throwing 4 interceptions and have a fumble totaling 5 turnovers and expect to win. It just don't work that way in the NFL, especially against another team that has playoff ambitions in the Chargers. Nah, that don't work at all. And ultimately, the Chargers took advantage of it. Cameron Dicker, who the Eagles had as a substitute kicker for a few weeks, has been nailing it. Had a great game last night for the Chargers. So shout out to him, though, and shout out to the Chargers because they did their thing. In the Eagles, I'll give the Eagles defense credit. They did great last night, but ultimately, it wasn't good enough. Now, and while we're still on that subject, you know what? I'm going to switch helms real quick. Normally, I start with the Thursday night game, but we're just going to do it. We're going to break from that tradition one time only while it's still on my mind. Let's get it out the way. So, the Los Angeles Chargers defeat the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. For the Eagles, man, it's a shame because, like I said, the defense actually did excellent in this one. The defense got to Justin Herbert 7 times. They got a couple picks on him. And you clearly see with Justin Herbert, the trend is when he's uncomfortable, when he's playing under pressure, he doesn't deliver. We look at the 2 playoff starts, particularly the start last year against the Houston Texans. And last night, Justin Herbert did not have a good game. Objectively, he did not. And yet, because Jalen Hurts was the even bigger dumpster fire last night, the Chargers ultimately skated by with a win, thanks to their automatic kicker, Dicker the Kicker. Still a great meme. I ain't going to lie there. But the Chargers managed to skate by with a win. And it's a shame because if Jalen Hurts wasn't throwing as many turnovers, the Eagles would have won this game, plain and simple. Look, Saquon Barkley actually had a pretty solid performance. He even had a long run for a touchdown. His second best game of the season behind the rematch with the Giants. I give Saquon credit. He hasn't been great this year, but last night, he played awesome. He was great last night. He had a few long runs, including that long touchdown. Dallas Goedert had himself a good game last night. So there were, the defense, like I said, they were really good last night. And they did a good job. They did pretty solid against the run game, considering the Chargers have one of the best run games in the NFL. And they held them to only 1 touchdown, field goals the rest of the way. But unfortunately, Jalen Hurts, too many turnovers killed him in this one. And like I said, I'm not giving up on him as the starter yet. I'm not going to go for Tanner McKee. Only if Jalen Hurts continues to have performances like last night. But last night, I got to hold him accountable, though. That was an awful performance last night. Yeah, and it was awesome. It was great, Blaze. Yeah, Saquon Barkley was excellent last night. Like I said, one dreadful quarterback performance stood in the way. So Jalen Hurts, I'm still support you. I'll still speak up against your haters for your overall body of work. But last night, you were dreadful last night, man. You got to play better than that. And I know Jalen Hurts knows deep down inside that he had a dreadful game. So I'm not going to go on too long about it, but I will say that. Now, for the Chargers, I got to give them props, though. The Chargers got themselves a good win at home in a game where their offensive line was getting destroyed, and their defense, particularly their secondary, stepped up. They're the third best secondary in terms of passing yards allowed, in terms of pass deflections and takeaways. Their secondary did their job, so I'll give the Chargers defensive backs credit. They did enough offensively to overcome the 2 turnovers. Cameron Dicker had an excellent performance. So I'll at least give the Chargers credit and say congrats to the Chargers. You've played the better game. You fought harder. You didn't give up when the game got tough. You move on now to 9-4, and that's serving good. Now you get to play Kansas City next week. That looks like a favorable matchup. And all I can say to the Chargers is good win. Good job by Jim Harbaugh turning this team around. And best of luck next week against KC. So we're going to start. So we started this one with the Monday night game. Now we're getting to the Thursday night game back on schedule. So for the Cowboys fans that thought that was funny, not so fast, because y'all also lost the primetime game too. You lost to Detroit Lions. Your problem was basically the opposite of the Eagles, where the Eagles' problem was their defense played really well, but their quarterback had too many turnovers. Well, the Cowboys, now Dak did have a few turnovers, yes, but he still did pretty solid, and he still at least kept them in the game. So at least I'll say this, Dak Prescott was better than Jalen Hurts in their respective Week 14 games, despite the 2 picks. Fair enough, I'll give Dak that. But he still threw 2 picks, and ultimately the Cowboys' defense was the opposite. They're the main reason they lost this game. Just when we thought the Dallas Cowboys defense was coming back to life. And I thought there was maybe a chance the Cowboys could win this game going into it, but that proved not to be the case. Fortunately for the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown did play. He had 9 receptions over 100 yards. He didn't find the end zone, which was the only thing he didn't do, but in all the other phases, he kept the Lions of offense moving. He kept them in this game, and the Lions get a much-needed win over the Dallas Cowboys to stay alive in the playoff race. So shout out to the Detroit Lions and for actually helping the Philadelphia Eagles out a little bit, even though the Eagles really don't deserve it, but hey, I'll take it. So there's that. But as far as the Lions go, like you see, now Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery didn't have the greatest rushing stats, but with Jahmyr Gibbs, as you see, 12 carries, 43 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's what matters most. He found the end zone 3 times and ultimately helped the Lions win as a result. And like I said, actually, it was 92 yards, 6 receptions. Who was it? Jamison Williams had 796. So Williams and Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown, despite not being 100%, still had a good game. And he still played a key role in that offense. So I'll give the Lions props on that. So even Dak with the 2 INTs, he still threw a touchdown pass. And still Javonte Williams he was all right on the ground game. I'm surprised the Cowboys didn't try to run the ball with him a little bit more, but that was their problem. So, but at the end of the day, credit to the Detroit Lions for getting a much-needed win. Their offense was great with 408 yards, 299 on the passing. And Jahmyr Gibbs now ties Barry Sanders for the most rushing touchdowns by a running back under 24. Isn't that crazy? So Jahmyr Gibbs is just 1 score away from breaking Barry Sanders' record for most touchdowns by a running back under 24. Isn't that crazy to have a Detroit Lion break the greatest running back in Detroit Lions history record? Because you know it's going to happen soon. It's just a matter of time. But let me just check real quickly. When's Jamar Gibbs' birthday? Let me just check real quickly before I... Jamar Gibbs. Let me see. When's his birthday? Just to make... Oh, it's in March. So, he's got plenty of time. Trust me. He turns 24 in March. He's got plenty of time to break that record. So, I stick by that claim. Yeah. Jamar Gibbs will break Barry Sanders' record. That's awesome company to be in for a young running back. And good for the Detroit Lions on keeping their playoff hopes alive. And then we get to Sunday. We start off pretty self-explanatory. Seattle Seahawks, Atlanta Falcons. What did you expect? What did you expect? Atlanta Falcons are a dumpster fire that is it. You know what's crazy? I can't believe the Falcons going into this game at 4-8 off a loss to the Jets were still alive in the playoff picture. How does that happen? You know how? Because the NFC South has two average teams, one team collapsing, another team starting to find their groove, and two trash teams. But the Falcons are now officially out. 4-9. Sam Darnold had 3 touchdowns. And well, hey, good for Sam Darnold. The career resurgence continues. And he's making the Jets look like fools. Now the question is, when's Zach Wilson going to get his shot at redemption? And when does he get to prove the Jets wrong? Because there's a good chance one day Sam Darnold's at his redemption day. When's Zach Wilson going to get his next chance with a new team and make the Jets look like fools like Darnold has? I don't know, man. But on a serious note, though, props to the Seahawks. They got a really good team going. Jackson Smith had 2 TDs. Cooper Kupp also had a TD. He only had 2 receptions, but hey, played solid. Rashid Shaheed had 4 receptions for 67 yards, along with 33 on 5 targets. So they got to take care of business. You got Devin Witherspoon. Nick Emarori had picks. And you also had a forced fumble by DeMarcus Lawrence. So that Seahawks defense did what they needed to do, basically playing a glorified scrimmage game against the Falcons. Seahawks took advantage of the situation and made them look like fools. And it's funny because now Sam Darnold joins interesting company. Give me 1 second. You probably don't know this, but here's a fun fact. So only 2 QBs with 10-plus win games in consecutive seasons with 2 different teams. That's Sam Darnold and Tom Brady. Brady did it with New England. Now Darnold with Darnold first with the Vikings. Now the Seahawks. So congrats to Sam Darnold. Good for him. Keep that redemption story going strong. I saw one meme try to say that Peyton Manning was the 3rd. Unfortunately, that doesn't count because that was the last season with Indianapolis as a starter. He missed the entire 2011 season, then went to the Broncos in 2012. So that unfortunately doesn't count for that reason. But congrats to the Seahawks. Now they stay tied with the Rams, and it's going to be an interesting race now to see who gets home field advantage between those 2 teams. Cannot wait. If you would have told me that this would have been one of the more interesting games of the week after last week, I would have said, what you talk about, Willis? Ain't no way. This is a super tank bowl. And theoretically, it still was. The Browns won the tank, Titans won the game. But the interesting story of this one comes out of it is Tony Pollard had a flashback to his Cowboys days, including breaking off a long touchdown. And that's that, but you also had, the Titans offense. Cam Ward threw 2 touchdowns in this one, looked pretty potent. And plus, Tony Pollard, 161 total yards, 25 carries, had 2 scores, found the end zone twice. So the Titans offense came to life here. And speaking of life, Shedeur Sanders, even though the result's disappointing, it's embarrassing team result, he brought some life to this Browns offense. He threw 3 touchdowns. He did also have a reckless pick early in the 3rd quarter, but to be fair, you're talking about a rookie quarterback in a bad team situation, so I can't give him too much flack. But Shedeur Sanders ultimately gave this Browns offense some life, and he threw 3 TDs, had 1 rushing TD. But I got to say this. So Shedeur Sanders led a comeback. Browns scored 12 points in the fourth quarter. Shedeur kept them in this game, including leads a potential game tying drive. But Kevin Stefanski had the smarts down 2 points, needing a 2-point conversion to go to overtime, to try a trick play on a 2-point conversion without Shedeur Sanders. This is easily the dumbest call on a 2-point conversion that I can recall. Why in the world are you not going to trust Shedeur Sanders, who had been carrying your team and carrying your offense through the game? This was almost the rant of the week until I got a little frustrated with the Philadelphia Eagles. So all I'm going to say is, what was Kevin Stefanski thinking? I get trying to maybe catch them off guard, but why would you need to catch the Titans defense off guard when Shedeur Sanders had been ripping them apart all game long? You got a rookie quarterback who's tearing this Tennessee Titans defense apart. Why do you pull Shedeur Sanders from the game and not even try to utilize him on a 2-point conversion? And people say, well, what if he didn't get it? They didn't get it with what they did. At least if you put Shedeur in for a 2-point conversion, you can say you gave your best effort instead of the dumbest botched trick play of the week. But with that being said, though, it's crazy that despite the Titans winning, the story's more about Shedeur, and he does have some promise for the future. We clearly see the Browns offense moves around more. He's more mobile than Dillon Gabriel was. Now, does that mean he's going to be the answer? That will be determined over time, but the Browns did at least have enough sense to say Shedeur is going to be the starter for the remainder of the season. As long as he stays healthy, he'll have time to get more experience under his belt, and we'll see how he comes along in this closing stretch for the Browns. And we'll get an idea of how much, into 2026. Is it you're going to go with Shedeur, or do you have to go back to the drawing board at quarterback? So the Browns, even in defeat, at least have some hope for now. And the Titans, well, I mean, hey, some of these guys are just playing for job security. Maybe Tony Pollard gets to keep his job a little longer. Hey, Cam Ward gets to have 2 touchdowns. He at least has something going. Maybe this gives him some hope, and Titans fans hope that Cam Ward will eventually pan out. But where time remains, time will tell. Moving right along. And now we go from the Tank Bowl to the AFC South. We got Duval football representing the Jacksonville Jaguars, dismantling the Indianapolis Colts 36-19. Now the Colts, similar to my team, have dropped 3 straight. So Shane Steichen, welcome to the club, pal. Welcome to the collapsing club. But on one hand, I can't even really be that mad at Shane. I can't even put this on Shane Steichen. Unfortunately for the Colts, they lost their quarterback, Daniel Jones, for the rest of the year, which is a shame, man, because this was supposed to be Daniel Jones' rejuvenation season. Early in the season, we were talking about Daniel Jones as the poster boy, along with Sam Darnold, for what happens when you move a quarterback to a new situation. And early on, it was panning out. Daniel Jones was playing really good football. Jonathan Taylor was looking like a dark horse for MVP. But now, that momentum has shifted. Tide has turned, and now it's not looking so great for the Colts. I mean, theoretically, they could still make the playoffs. They're not out of it yet, but 8-5 without Daniel Jones the rest of the way. And they're so desperate for a quarterback, mind you, that the Indianapolis Colts, folks, are actually working out Phillip Rivers. They're so desperate for help at quarterback. They're working out Phillip Rivers, who last played in the 2020 season. Now, that's a little bit funny. Just the story in of itself is kind of funny. Like, wow. You're bringing Phillip Rivers, who hasn't played a down since the wild card round, hasn't played a game since January 2021. You're calling Phillip Rivers to try to come in and try to help your team out in this situation. Are you out of your minds? Are you out of your minds? Where do I even begin with this one, honestly? I don't even know where to begin with this one because this is just such an atrocious idea. This is such an atrocious idea. I know they're desperate for help, but you're really calling Phillip Rivers out of retirement. You know how rusty he would be, and do you think his body could even hold up? I mean, that's just sad right there. I do feel bad for the Colts to some degree. Seriously. Because their once promising season looks like it's dead now. And that's a shame because this is one of the feel-good stories of the NFL. Now it's going to be one of those all-time regular season collapse stories, most likely, because I don't see Riley Leonard or if actually Anthony Richardson does play, I don't see them turning it around. So, unfortunately, this is kind of where they're at. But let's talk about the Jaguars a little bit. Congrats to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You see, all you did was Doug Peterson's one great hit wonder ass out of there, and you bring in Liam Cohen, and so far you see the results paying off. You saw Travis Etienne. They're now 9-4. Their Jacksonville Jaguars are in first place in the AFC South, and they could be hosting a home playoff game. And the crazy part is, this team's actually stronger than that 2022 Jaguars that went on a magical run late with a collapsing Titans. This team is stronger, so I like their odds of winning the AFC South. So credit to Travis Etienne at 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence had a good performance, nearly 300 yards in this game. So I'm going to give the Jaguars credit here. They did what they needed to do as a team. Credit to the Jaguars for surprising us all and having a 9-4 season. So I'm looking forward, though, to those Jaguars-Texans games. I'll tell you that, folks. Now, this next game, we're just going to keep it kind of quick. I'll just say this. Prayers up to Zach Ertz on a recovery. He got carted off with a nasty leg injury. It's unfortunate that this is likely going to be the end of Zach Ertz's career. And this looks like it's going to be his retirement season anyway. But now at this age, getting a serious injury, it's a shame. But I think it's going to be tough for him to overcome and get back to form after this. So, unfortunately for Zach Ertz, if this is the final straw, I'm sorry that it had to come to an end this way. Prayers up on a recovery. Even Darius Slay went on Twitter and posted up prayers on a recovery for Zach Ertz. And for this man, could the Washington Commanders be anything less than an example of a downward spiral, of a single season collapse? Well, what am I looking to say? Of a single season, could they be any better example of a non-Super Bowl team having a complete one season in 180? This is a perfect example of that. Jaden Daniels came back. He looked rusty. Absolutely rusty. 9 for 20, 1 INT. He looked like he had no business being back on the field. And at this point, you don't want to – they should obviously – I think they should just shut Jaden Daniels down for the remainder of the season, honestly. Do you want to risk him getting hurt? Because remember, that's what happened with RG3 his rookie year. They rushed him back. They rushed him into games when he wasn't 100%. But the biggest difference between rookie RG3 and sophomore Jaden Daniels is Washington was playing RG3 when he wasn't 100% because they were making a push for the playoffs. So there was at least that reason to keep playing RG3. In this case, Washington has nothing going for the season. Why risk your potential future quarterback for meaningless stretch of games down the line? And you can say, well, what if you lose out? Well, you get a top pick. You get to get an offensive lineman to protect Jaden Daniels going forward. So actually, there could be more gain from it. Because the higher you pick in the first round, the more like you are to get the top prospect on a top offensive lineman prospect to fill that void. And for the Vikings, I mean, yes, they win this game, but what did they really get out of this 5-8 win? I mean, maybe confidence for J.J. McCarthy, 3 touchdowns. But now we got to see what they're going to do going forward with it. So I know there's not the best analysis, but this game wasn't that great anyway. Not much to say. Now, the next game, this is an interesting one. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers beat their division rival, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, with the Steelers and Ravens, we're used to splits between these teams, so this ain't really that surprising. It's not really a surprise that we get a split between the Steelers and the Ravens. We're used to that. But I feel like this is a weird situation because for the team that ends up winning out the AFC North, which is likely going to be the Steelers now that they got this win, I don't see this working out too great in the long haul because for the AFC North winner, I feel like you're in a lose-lose situation because really for the Steelers, we'll put it that way. On one hand, if you don't win the division, you have another season where you do average at best. If you do win the division, you're likely talking about a one and done, and there's not much wiggle room. You don't have much leverage in the draft going forward. You kind of stay in a complacent space. If the Ravens win the rematch and they win out the rest of their games and somehow win the AFC North, the Ravens are stuck in the same predicament where even if you do win the division, you're likely facing a one and done and you're stuck in middle of the pack without a lot of leverage room. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, I'll give credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers for winning this game. Aaron Rodgers had a rushing touchdown. He had a nice bomb to DK Metcalf. He at least gets to add this game to his resume before he officially calls it quits. So at least he had himself one really solid game before he goes off. Even if he doesn't do anything the rest of the way, at least for one game, Aaron Rodgers can say, hey, I had myself a really good game, and I took care of business. So for the Steelers, congratulations on the win. But, man, this was just, I feel like either way, it's a lose-lose situation for the Steelers and Ravens for whoever wins that division. But any note, man, congrats to on one hand, congrats to the Steelers. On the other hand, I don't know what this really does for them long-term, man. This has got to be the worst Steelers-Ravens race to the finish we've seen in their rivalry. Because usually when you see the Steelers and Ravens racing for first place in the AFC North and it coming down the wire between those two teams, that usually spells exciting football. But in this case, it just spells two mediocre teams looking to win out a weak division. So Steelers win in and to me is an anticlimactic fashion. But the Steelers do win. Like I said, Aaron Rodgers looks good. Mike Tomlin pretty much blew a kiss to the CBS production crew to say, hey, take that. And for this week, Mike Tomlin's earned the bragging rights to all his naysayers for 1 week. But we have to wait and see where the Steelers and Ravens go from here. This next game, man, the Saints win, yes, but do they really win? I mean, they get the win against the Buccaneers, but at the end of the day, what does a win do for the New Orleans Saints, really? What it does, if anything, is it increases the Carolina Panthers' odds of winning the division. And Baker Mayfield, I'll tell you, man, that non-throwing shoulder, it's getting to him. He in this game, he completed 14 of 30, one TD, one INT, had a QBR of 44.6, an overall rating of 55.1. Overall, man, this was just not. It's looking like 2021 Baker when he tried to gut it out for Cleveland in his final season. And it's happening again, folks. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now 7-6. They're in a tight race to win their division at the end of the season, this time against the Carolina Panthers. I said the Bucs were starting to collapse after the Rams' performance, and I looks like the New Orleans Buccaneers offense proved me right in this one. Now the real question is, who's going to win the NFC South? Is it the Buccaneers or the Panthers? Panthers had their bye week, so they have a week to recover, take that momentum from the upset over the Rams, and take it forward into next week. And for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now, you have another bad loss, an embarrassing loss to a team that pretty much everyone had you the favorites against, a 2-10 Saints team, and you didn't win. Tyler Show had 2 TD runs. He managed to come to life. Now, to be fair, the Saints do have a win over the Panthers and a win over the Bucs. So the Saints at least have that for their otherwise dreadful season. And the Bucs in this one, unfortunately, they were down left guard. Their left guard, Ben Bredson, left in the second quarter. And you also had, of course, Mike Evans, Luke Haggard, Benjamin Morrison were out. And then next week, you got Bucs and Falcons got to play Thursday night. I don't even know at this point about that one. I'm not sure, honestly. And then you get the Saints playing the Panthers, which I think the Panthers should put that. That'll probably be a win for the Panthers, but more on that later tonight on Pick'ems. But now we get to move on to a fun game. We got to see up in Orchard Park. We saw some snow hit the ground in Buffalo. And let me tell you something. I'm a big fan of snow games, so I'm glad we got a snow game here. The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, early on, it looked like this was going to potentially be an upset. Cincinnati came out hot. They were taking control of the game early, but the Buffalo Bills fought back. They took advantage of that historically awful Bengals defense that we keep mentioning. And Josh Allen, again, did the usual Josh Allen. And that usual Josh Allen, of course, is throwing touchdown passes, having a rushing touchdown of his own, putting up great fantasy numbers. And he did so in the snow, which is something the Buffalo Bills have gotten accustomed to recently. So thank you, football gods, for allowing us to have a snow game. Got to see an awesome sight. Joe Burrow did throw 4 touchdowns, but he had 2 picks. This is pretty much standard Bengals football. Both teams score over 30 points, but the Bengals fall short. Now, can somebody fix that Bengals defense just for Joe Burrow's sake and give him a decent offensive line, please and thank you? So thank you there. And move. But awesome game. Good job here by both offenses, scoring over 30. Credit to Josh Allen. Even James Cook III had 80 yards on 18 carries in that one. Dalton Knecht had 41 yards on 4 receptions. Dawson Knox, 93 yards on 6 receptions. And all around, excellent performance by the Buffalo Bills over the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'll give them props on the win. And then moving right along, we got the Miami. We're going to scroll last 1 o'clock game. We had the Miami Dolphins defeat the New York Jets. Interesting story. The Miami Dolphins, who we looked at as a tank bowl team, have now won. Folks, they have won. How many games now is it? Because now they're 6-7. They technically have a shot, but I don't see them actually doing so. But the Dolphins, have their fourth straight win. I think their fifth win in 6 games. So credit to the Dolphins. It looks like Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Wright, and them are actually playing. They're playing for their jobs. The Jets were forced to rely on a QB named Brady Cook. Who that is? Yeah. But, and on a serious note, though, credit to the Miami Dolphins for getting a win here. But I don't know, where did they go long term from here? You had Mason Taylor had a stinger. You have Caleb Johnson, though, the linebacker, left the game with the shoulder injury in the first. Elijah Campbell was ruled out, the knee injury or knee and ankle injuries in the third. But credit to the Dolphins beat up on the Jets. That's good for job security going forward. Hey, what is up? We got Grega in the chat. So that's all. So that's what I got for the 1 o'clock games. We'll take a quick break. Then I'll be back to discuss the 4 o'clock games. Stay tuned because I'll be right back. Alrighty, folks, I'm back after the short break. We're back to it once again, doing our thing on the 3-point blitz. Now we're coming right back to the show after a quick break. We got the 1 o'clock games over. I already talked about the Philadelphia Eagles. We got that out of the way. I think Grego unfortunately missed it, but to any Eagles fans that stopped by that may have missed my rant about the Eagles, I'll clip that. You guys can catch it on my channel later, and I'll share the link with you guys. So I'll be doing that later afterward for those that missed it. Because I know this is usually around the time we get the Eagles fans coming in. Eagles fans there, not to worry. I'll be out here as we're doing this on my channel. And the Hardcore Sports Network, as always. So shout out to both. Now, without any further ado, man, we talked about, let's get back into it. Let's start talking about the evening games a little bit. The Broncos and Raiders. Well, this ended up being a closer game than expected. Then the records would indicate, but we kind of knew in the back of our minds, like, look, we're dealing with two teams who, and granted, we're dealing with division rivals. We know division rivalry games usually end up being competitive. There's something on the line. Even the bad team, even when one team seems far better on paper, there's usually more competitiveness to it. It was 7-7 in the first quarter, but make no mistake about it. I think everyone that was following this game ultimately knew deep down that the Raiders weren't going to win this one. You knew the Raiders weren't winning. This was going to be Broncos all the way, cruising to 11-2, and they did. And now the Raiders, and now the Broncos are, as of today, they're tied for a home field. They're leading home field advantage for the AFC playoff picture. So credit to the Broncos right there for that. And this wasn't a pretty game, but it was a win for the Broncos. It keeps momentum going for the playoffs in their favor. RJ Harvey had a touchdown in this one. And that was the main thing to note offensively. You also had Bo Nix with a rushing touchdown. Interestingly, you did have Kenny Pickett come in. He had 11 passes. He threw for a touchdown. Kenny Pickett, for the playing time he got, played solid. He stepped in for injured Geno Smith, and maybe going forward, and now the Eagles got to play the Raiders next. So on one hand, does Kenny Pickett get the start against the Eagles? Probably, because he was in the locker room with a lot of the same players. So maybe Kenny Pickett does get the playing time. But in this one, man, it was the Broncos taking care of business, getting the dub. Pretty self-explanatory, because we got more. Raiders kicked the field goal with no time left to make it 24-17. People say it was scripted. It was, if anything, it was just filler points and garbage time, if anything. But then, speaking of filler, let's get this one out the way. The Los Angeles Rams take care of the Arizona Cardinals, do what they were expected to do. A really, a strong team with home field advantage in the playoffs in their conference at this point, blows out a division rival who's on the verge of a full-blown rebuild. Pretty self-explanatory. Good momentum-setting win for the Rams going into the home stretch. But now we actually going to get to the interesting games. The game that actually was interesting. Going into this one, we knew this was going to be a good game. We knew we had two of the top teams in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. This was the most intriguing Packers versus Bears matchup since week 17 of the 2013 season, when they played for the NFC North with the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary that helped the Packers win the NFC North and get the home playoff game against the 49ers. But this was the first Packers-Bears game in a long time with a lot of intrigue. And did it deliver? Yes, it did. We had two really good teams, a Chicago Bears team that far has exceeded expectations this season, that was winning the division headed into this one, going against the Green Bay Packers team who, with the addition of Micah Parsons, looks like a stronger all-around team. And this one, Jordan Love had continued his streak of multi-game touchdown passes, taking momentum from the Thanksgiving game into this one, throwing 3 touchdowns against the really good Bears defense. Now, he did throw an interception to C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but the team did good enough where At the end of the game, that didn't matter. Josh Jacobs had 20 carries, 86 yards. He had a touchdown on that. And then Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams still did have 2 touchdowns in this one, to be fair. So he had a pick, but Caleb Williams didn't do horrible. He at least showed some flashes, even in defeat. And this is one of those games I saw both teams actually played up to the expectations of being teams fighting for a home playoff game or potentially a long shot, but potentially home field advantage. But both teams would need some luck to go their way. They need the Seahawks and or Rams to lose some games and would need to win some games for that to happen. But you got 2 of the best teams in the NFC. The game lived up to the hype. The second quarter was the Packers' best quarter offensively. They jumped out to a 14-3 lead at halftime, but the Bears came roaring back in the second half. They did manage to score 18 points in the second half after only scoring 3 in the first half. So they got majority of their points in the second half. So I give the Bears credit, but I'll say this. Packers are going to be a really tough team, and they're getting hot at the right time of year. It works out perfectly. The weather's starting to get cold, playing to Green Bay's favor. Jordan Love's starting to show some promises late in the season. But then again, to be fair, usually we know the Jordan Love routine. He usually saves his best regular season performances for late in the season. So get ready to see some more good Jordan Love performances to maybe even borderline great as the season goes along. And for the Chicago Bears, even though they lost, they showed they belong at the top of the NFC with this performance. So I will give the Chicago Bears props. Shout out to both teams on an excellent performance. And also, to be fair, let's not forget Josh Jacobs. He had a touchdown as well. He only had 86 yards on 20 carries, but that was still played a key role in the Packers offense. Good job. Good job. So, and congratulations to the Green Bay Packers on a hard-earned win. Salute to both teams. This was, if anything, this may have lived up to the moniker being the game of the week. Now, I can't wait for the rematch in a few weeks. We'll see what happens. That's going to be in Chicago. We'll see if the Bears get them back, man. But either way, I'm looking forward to that one. So, salute to the Packers on getting the win here. And we're kind of in a weird spot. We're closing this off with the Sunday night game because I already decided to get the Eagles ran out the way. So now we're going to close this out, talk about Sunday night. This was an interesting game. Maybe not the most exciting, but it was interesting. Let's start off with the winning team. Let's start off with the Kansas City Chiefs. Get the negative part out the way first. The Kansas City Chiefs are starting to come crashing back down. But to be fair, you can't keep making it happens eventually. All the good teams eventually come crashing back down to earth. You can't make the Super Bowl every single season. It's impressive they made 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls and have been in the last 7 AFC Championship games, and they've been to the playoffs every year since 2015. That's a great accomplishment, but eventually, as always, it all comes crashing down. And for Kansas City, it's just that time, man. I mean, I can't say anything about it. I'm sure even Kansas City fans, while they're disappointed with the way the season's gone, I'm sure they can't be too disappointed. I mean, they got 3 Super Bowl wins in recent history. They have to be realistic. And to be fair, Patrick Mahomes is still young enough to possibly get him back to another Super Bowl down the line. But in this one, hey, this is the year where it's coming down a little bit. They're 6-7. They're getting that. They kind of have that hangover from all the high they've been riding for nearly the past decade. Mahomes threw 3 picks in this one. He did not look good at all offensively. And it's crazy because Kansas City's defense actually did really good in this one. They were getting, especially in the third quarter, they were getting a lot of pressure on Houston in the second half. And they did really good, and they did a good job defensively. But their offense just couldn't get it going. Travis Kelce, man, maybe it might be true that what people are saying that he's more focused on being a husband and potentially a father down the line than he is being an elite tight end. I think Travis Kelce might be getting to that point. So I'll say this about Travis Kelce. They can still make it if they win out. And yes, they could, but they're also going to need some help along the way, which we'll get to that in a second. As far as Travis Kelce, if he's at the point where he is more worried about being potential, being a husband and possibly future father, all power to him. Just if that's where his focus is, I think for his legacy, the sooner he'd retire, the better. Because I would hate to see Travis Kelce stick around for another 3 to 4 years as a shell of his former self. If he's really not feeling it with football anymore, hey, you made a ton of money. You're about to marry a rich pop star. Congratulations on that. But if you're not there football-wise, I would like to just see Travis call it a day before he ends up tainting his legacy too much. Now, to be fair, he's played decent this season, but this was not one of his better games at all. This was the exact opposite. But on the flip side, Houston Texans are the positive from this. Houston Texans were sitting at 3-5, looking like they were going to have to reboot. But they've won 5 straight games. They're sitting at 8-5. They're only a game back from first place in the AFC South. That's going to be a fun game when we get to see the Texans and Jaguars rematch. And it all started, ironically, with a big comeback over the team that now leads the AFC South in the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I do give Houston credit for this. Their defense, again, excellent job. Forced 3 turnovers on Patrick Mahomes. And their offense, C.J. Stroud did excellent in the first half, but then the second half kind of started, their offense struggled. But here's the thing. I want you to take notes, Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni. When Kansas City's D-line was getting that Texans offensive line, their offensive line couldn't keep up. DeMeco Ryans and the offense made adjustments. They started throwing some short passes. And then when they started doing that, what happened was Kansas City got a little bit weary, looking out more for the short pass, which opened a few holes in the running game. And it led to Kansas City's defense folding a little bit and Houston being able to move the ball downfield for a long scoring drive to go up 17-10. Then that they did once they got the ball back, they kicked the field goal to make it a 10-point lead, and they did not surrender that lead at all. So credit to the Houston Texans. That defense, I'm telling you, phenomenal. Excellent. You got a lot of underrated players on that team. And I think now, finally, the Houston Texans defense is finally getting its due. They're finally starting to realize that this team is a team to be legit. So you got 3 interceptions from them. And in this one, you also got, how many sacks did they get? Let's see. Oh, they only got 2 sacks, but they got 3 picks, 3 takeaways. That's what counts. Now, the interesting question I have, though, for Houston is what happens now that people are starting to catch on and realize that this defense is legit? Are teams going to start to change the way they scout this defense? Are they going to adjust to playing against Houston? We'll have to see. But the Houston Texans get a really good win. And the main takeaway for this is if C.J. Stroud can just get back to rookie form, they could be contenders. I think that's the one thing holding Houston back from its true potential is C.J. Stroud just hasn't gotten back to that rookie form yet. And I'm not saying he's horrible by any stretch of the imagination, but this isn't what the C.J. Stroud we saw 2 years ago. And I think that's going to be the difference between good team and a contender. But congrats to the Houston Texans. Good win here, and they keep that momentum going. And I already talked about the Eagles Chargers. I already gave my thoughts on that. You know what I'm going to do real quickly? I'm going to do something a little bit of fun. I actually downloaded my YouTube short video about the Eagles. So I'm going to share that with you guys real quickly. Enjoy. I present to you the absolute worst team at closing drives in the NFL in the Philadelphia Eagles. Folks, that is 3 games, mind you, 3 games with 4 drives that had promised to end in a touchdown or a field goal that resulted in turnovers. 2 tonight, 4 interceptions from Jalen Hurts. I can't blame this one on Jalen Carter not playing. They got to Justin Herbert. The pass rush was awesome. The defense did its job. They held the Chargers to field goals when they moved down the field and only gave up that 1 touchdown, so I can't blame this on the defense at all. It's the offense. 4 interceptions. 4. And now, not just that, 4 interceptions tonight, but 4 potential scoring drives in the past 3 games, resulting in turnovers. The one against Dallas that we were moving the ball downfield, the first of 2 fumbles. That could have changed the outcome of that game against the Cowboys. The 2 interceptions tonight when we were moving the ball downfield, including the final play. We do something different there, there's a potential to score a touchdown. Or, anything. At this point, this was clearly Jalen Hurts' this was his worst game. It's either this or the 2021 wild card round against the Tom Brady-led Buccaneers. It's either this game or that game that's the worst. Matter of fact, Eagles fans, let me know. What game was worse from Hurts? Was it tight against the Chargers or the 2021 wild card round against the Tom Brady-led Bucs in Tampa? Because it's pretty close. I gotta take some time to think about it for an answer myself, but you guys let me know what game was worse from Hurts. Because this was just a dreadful game. There's no excuse for this. Because Saquon actually had himself a pretty solid game. Dallas Goedert did pretty good today. I'm not blaming this on... I'm mostly putting the blame on Hurts for this one. I am. Look, this is all... I'm not saying that I'm giving up on him as a quarterback, but he's taking the blame for this game for sure. So, we drop our 3rd straight. I expected us to lose, but I was hoping I was wrong. And there were teases. And by the way, if you're not going to actually score when you get into territory and you're going to turn the ball over, don't waste my time teasing a scoring drive as a fan. And I feel like I speak for all Eagles fans on that one. That's my rant for tonight. I'll talk about this more tomorrow. 3-point Blitz. And that was my rant. And for Greg and anyone else who's just coming in, I actually did that at the beginning of the show. But what I will do is I will clip that rant and I'll make it upload as a video to my channel. The reason I did that because my rant of the week was about the fans that all of a sudden are pushing for Tanner McKee to start this morning. So I just went from that straight into the Eagles game. So I'll clip that for anyone who missed it. And so we'll keep the ball rolling here. I said enough about the Eagles for today. Let's start off. Or let's close out the football portion with the Week 14 winners and losers. Week 14 winners, the Houston Texans for getting a huge win to keep momentum going in the AFC South and to keep turning around. The next one, the Detroit Lions, for winning a game that seemed like a trap game against the Cowboys and keeping alive in the tight playoff picture in the NFC. And then the last winner of the week, I'm going to go with this one. I'll have to say the Jacksonville Jaguars for officially cementing themselves as a top team in the NFC and the potential kings of the AFC South being in first place as of today. The 3 big losers of the week, we'll start off with this one. Obviously, the Indianapolis Colts. You've dropped 3 straight, but you lose your starting quarterback for the season. Now, what was looking great is now looking like a building collapse. The second big loser, we'll go individual, go with Jalen Hurts. Pretty much explained it. I'll just say this. To answer my question I put out in that short, I'll say this was the true worst game of his career. Because there were so many opportunities that they didn't capitalize off of. Hopefully the Eagles they better beat the Raiders. I'm telling you. Because if they don't beat the Raiders, then something is going horribly wrong. So the last loser, that's the other loser. And the final, you got the Colts, Jalen Hurts as an individual with his ugly performance that if he just played if he just played 10% better, we could have won that game. And then the last loser of the week, I'll go with, say, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for losing an easy game against the New Orleans Saints and a game that would have put them ahead 2 games in the NFC South, but now they're tied instead, or game ahead, but instead they're tied with the Panthers. So that's my 3 big losers of the week. So that's it for the NFL portion. Now we got the NBA portion to talk about for this show. Actually, give it 1 minute. I will be right back. It's only going to be a real quick break, so I'm not even going to put the music in the background. This is just going to be a real quick break. And before we get into it, dude, I literally just looked at my phone for just a split second. And I find out this just broke while I was in the middle of talking about it. There's one more football thing to talk about. Phillip Rivers has signed with the Colts practice squad. This is actually legit. I mean, I'm swear. Am I seeing things? What's going on? Hold on. Come on. Wake up. Wake up, Nikki. Come on. This can't be real. There's no way. Phillip Rivers did not just sign with the Colts practice squad. Hold on. There's no way. Phillip Rivers is actually on the Colts practice squad. This can't be. This can't be. Nah. 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 Hold on a second. This can't be real. I'm really like, am I hallucinating here, folks? I don't know. Let me know. Let me look it up real quickly just to make sure I'm not hallucinating. All right. Nah. Hold on. Colts Phillip Rivers. Let's see the news. Let's double check. Wait a minute. What? Yeah, folks, look. Source, QB Rivers on retiring to sign with Colts. It's real, folks. What the hell is going on here? Yeah, this is real, folks. This is actually, I don't believe it. Dude, has not played since 2020, is signing to the Indianapolis Colts practice squad. Okay. This is real? What? I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, then again, if Manny Pacquiao could retire and box and have a draw after being away for 4 years, why not Phillip Rivers, I guess? He won't be taking as many hits directly. So maybe good. So we'll see. Riley Leonard is listed as, it's Riley Leonard, Anthony Richardson, and now Phillip Rivers on the practice squad for now. Wow. I mean, I don't even know. We'll just wait and see. Maybe he'll start. I don't know, but I don't like the odds because I don't know. How's his body going to hold up? How is his body going to hold up to those hits, though? That's my question. I don't know how that's going to happen. Now, with that being said, we'll see, though. So, I don't know. Maybe this was just for publicity stunt. Maybe they actually are serious. All I can say is, if he does end up playing, best of luck to him. Moving right along, LeBron. So, all right, I'm still trying to process that previous news, folks. I'm still trying to process it because I feel like I'm having a weird dream. But moving on, let's talk about the NBA for a second. All right, so LeBron James, double-digit scoring streak of 10 or more points going back from January 2007 comes to an end. It happened in a game last week against the Toronto Raptors where they ended up winning. LeBron James passed up a potential game-winning shot with 8 points past the Rui Hachimura, who hit the 3. Now, the Lakers get the win, but LeBron's streak comes to an end. Is this a major story? To me, it's not a major story because at the end of the day, its stats don't – the stat of having 10 or more points in a single game, while it is to some degree an impressive accomplishment, it's not that significant in the grand scheme of things. So it's just a small little story for the NBA season to get people talking. So I'll give LeBron credit. It was a fun little streak. Wasn't the greatest accomplishment, but it was at least something. So I guess like they say, all good things must come to an end. So it happened. I guess for LeBron, it wasn't that important to him since he passed it to Hachimura. So I guess he figured that wasn't as important. Maybe more so for him, the individual points was more important and the finals wins were more important. So, hey, if LeBron James, so it is what it is. But we actually got speaking of veterans at the final years of their career, we actually do have something to talk about. Because LeBron James' buddy, Chris Paul, just got waived by the Los Angeles Clippers. This is an interesting subject. Because the Los Angeles Clippers actually waived Chris Paul. And apparently there was some conflict brewing in the locker room. He was getting into it with coaches, specifically over he didn't feel like the team was being held accountable for their poor performances on the court, which I completely understand. Because the Clippers have been a dreadful team this year on the court. They're not playing up to expectations. So I get it. Sometimes you need that veteran to straighten people out. Call them out on their behavior. Call them out. But Chris Paul, the thing was, I guess Tyronn Lue felt like he was taking it a little too far because sometimes Chris Paul does have a history of getting heated when calling out teammates. So those heated call outs, those heated feedbacks that Chris Paul provides can sometimes it can work out in your favor and sometimes it can work against you. So, I mean, that's a slippery slope because sometimes getting on people can feel fire in them. But for other people, maybe it can cause their confidence to take a brief hit. And I think what the thing was in this case with Chris Paul, I believe the reason they let him go is because he's at the end of his career. He's not really producing at this point. So they don't really see much value in Chris Paul on this team at his current state in his career. Because let's face it, Chris Paul is averaging 2 to 3 points per game. I mean, this is Chris Paul's look in the second stint with the Clippers. He was looking like Shaq on the Celtics, T-Mac on the Knicks. He was looking like those guys. He was looking like, who else? He was looking like Pat Ewing on the Magic. I mean, he was looking awful this go-around. So I guess the Clippers didn't really feel like he was contributing much. Now, if this would have happened in 2015, the team would have leaned more toward him. Maybe it would have been a Phil Jackson type thing when Kobe and Jordan would sometimes get on players. And maybe in a way that maybe sometimes it can get people going. Sometimes it might rub people the wrong way. Because Chris Paul has that similar style leadership. when calling out players that a Kobe Bryant and a Michael Jordan have, where they do it in a way where sometimes it works out in your favor, but sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. It could come across the wrong way. And at least with but when it happened back, that's right. Yeah, I'm in a grouchy mood after last night. That's why I got this going. And now sometimes that can work, but sometimes that could cause the player's confidence to take a hit. So you got to be careful with that style of leadership, where that's a style, like I said, that dogging on players, so to say, that can sometimes work in your favor, and sometimes it might not work out as well. But I think for the Clippers, for Tyronn Lue, they're like, look, man, Chris Paul's getting on this team about how bad it is. He's getting on the players, yet he's not producing himself. So they probably didn't really see much value in this, except to sell a few tickets. I guess the Clippers figured, hey, they still have James Harden, who's actually been playing really good for them. He's been the bright spot of a dreadful Clippers team thus far. Wonder how much longer before he requests a trade. But on a serious note, though, James Harden's been lights out. He's been balling this season so far. Kawhi Leonard's in and out of the lineup, so I kind of get it. It's like Chris Paul at this stage of his career isn't adding value to a team, so they just decided to cut him. Like if this were a decade ago, maybe the coach would try to work it in, like kind of like Phil Jackson did when Kobe would get on guys like Smush Parker. Phil found a way to kind of play mediator to some degree to work through that conflict. So I think it's a combination of having the right coach and making, to make sure that the player, doesn't go too overboard with their calling out people, because sometimes these superstars get a little bit in their own way and they sometimes go a little bit overboard sometimes, but sometimes you got to call people out. You got to let players know when they're not doing their jobs right. So I think the Clippers in this case, it doesn't really make much. It's not going to make much of a difference to me. So I'm kind of indifferent, but I feel like at this point, it's not going to resonate well with the team when Chris Paul isn't contributing at this stage in his career. So I'll leave it at that, but we're going to close this thing out. We got an exciting night, folks. The NBA Cup's quarterfinals begins tonight, folks. Tonight at 6 p.m. we start off in the Eastern Conference with two Florida teams, the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat. The Heat Magic come into this one with a 14-10 regular season record. The Miami Heat in this one are led by the new addition, Norman Powell. You still got Bam Adebayo. You still got Tyler Hero. So you got a pretty solid core around them. And they've been managing to find ways to make it work. And the Orlando Magic, too, they've reshuffled it. They're kind of in a similar place they were last year. But unfortunately for the Miami Heat, Franz Wagner suffered a big injury. I'm going to take a look at him real quick. Franz Wagner, a boy. Okay, so Wagner had an ankle sprain. Okay, so it's not a serious injury, but he does have an ankle sprain. He's likely out for tonight. I'm going to take a look at the depth charts real quick, see who's playing, who's likely not playing for tonight to get an idea for that one. So give me 1 second. We're going to share this. All right, we got the chat. And we got it. All right. And you got banned the Clippers out of the league. And the Thunder ended that franchise. Yeah, that trade, man. Hey, they got SGA from that trade, and they got future picks out of it. So the Thunder, we know who won that trade. How, don't we? And yeah, they haven't learned their lesson. We got Agent Warrior stopping by in the chat. Agent Warrior, who will be joining me tonight at 8 p.m. on the Hardcore Sports Network exclusive NFL Pick'ems on the network. So we'll be talking about recapping Week 14. Looking forward to Week 15 coming up. That's later tonight. And speaking of later tonight, I also got the NBA Cup. So back to that, you got the Heat. Got Davion Mitchell day-to-day. Tyler Hero day-to-day. He's questionable. The big story is Tyler Hero is questionable. You get Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, who's been a solid role player for this team. Bam Adebayo. So 2 of their main 3 will be playing in this one. And plus Tyler Hero will be playing as well, too. So they're looking mostly out. Now you got the Orlando Magic in this one. I believe Franz Wagner is going to be out with that ankle sprain. So we don't have to. Let's take a look at their roster real quick. Their depth chart real quick. Let's see. Let's see. So for tonight, we got Wagner. Yep, Wagner's out, but you still have Wendell Carter, Paulo Banchero, Desmond Bain, Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs are still going to be playing. This is going to be a good matchup. It should be. But in this one, with no Franz Wagner, they're going to be a little shorthanded tonight. So I'll go with the Miami Heat to win this one. But I feel like it's going to be a good game. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. Then later tonight, we got the New York Knicks against the Toronto Raptors. So I'll take the Heat to win the first one. And this one, you got Jalen Brunson, who's been once again having an excellent season. Brandon Ingram's been leading the way, having himself a pretty solid year, 21.2 points. But I think I'll go with the Knicks in this one. While the Raptors, I like what they're doing thus far. I still think they got some work to do. I don't think they're quite there yet, but they're one of the more surprising stories of the Eastern Conference. But I'll take the Knicks to win this one. We saw them doing it before, and who I got winning the cup? I'll take the Thunder. Just pretty much around the better team. Let's see. The Knicks tonight. Karl Towns is day-to-day. So he's still questionable. You got Miles McBride's out, but you still got OG, Mikal, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, who've been playing really good thus far. Knicks are 16-7. So I like the Knicks in this one over the Raptors. Even though I think the Raptors are a better team, I still just don't think they got that real star to compete against a team like the Knicks. So I'll take the Knicks to win that. Give me the Knicks versus the Heat. And then for the Western Conference tomorrow night, we got the defending champs OKC Thunder, who are lights out, going against the Phoenix Suns, who are surprisingly 14-10. I got to give – Devin Booker's been stepping up, having a pretty good year thus far. He's been 87% from the free throw line, 25 points, 45.7 from the field. And you got Jalen Green. Although Jalen Green's out, here's the injury report right now, real quickly for that one. While the Suns have been better than expected, I'm still looking yet. Yeah, Jalen Green's out. Booker, game time decision. Livers, game time decision. All the Thunder guys are game time decisions, but I got the Thunder winning this one. They're the much better all-around team. Then we get the other game, the closer in the West Coast, the Los Angeles Lakers versus the San Antonio Spurs. You got Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves. That team has been excellent. Going against the San Antonio Spurs, who are 16-7, who are still winning games. Now, Wembanyama, he's a game-time decision. So is Harrison Ingram and Jordan McLaughlin. But you've been seeing Devin Vessel's been having a bit of a breakout year, a little bit of a mini breakout year for the San Antonio Spurs. So you see something going there. And you also have, of course, Wemby. Now you got De'Aaron Fox. This team's actually looking like a legit team. Oh, it says Wemby's out as of now. So I guess he's out for that game. So I'll take the Lakers to win that one. We got Lakers and Thunder. That would mean in the semifinals. But I feel like that's going to give them the slight edge because the Lakers will have Luka playing. But that should be a good game tomorrow night. Lakers versus Spurs. I want to see how this revitalized Spurs team does against one of the top teams. So those are my predictions right there. So we just got to wait and see. We got a little bit of interesting basketball games. We just got to wait and see how that goes. We'll come back, recap it. Next week, we'll talk more about the NBA Cup. But for now, thanks to Grega, thanks to Arku, Agent Warrior X, who will be my co-host on the Pick'ems tonight. Thank you all you guys for stopping by. Straight to the point. Sports ENT. Thanks for stopping by, Blazed. I hope you guys enjoyed, whether you caught this for the whole thing or part of the show. It's your boy Nicky C signing off for an awesome episode 38 of the 3-Point Blitz. And I'll catch y'all next time.